tire. That's about 1 month old tire. So I brought it back to the shop that they fixed it. And they fixed it. I went to pick it up, and the gentleman told me that, this nail was not picked up through normal driving. I didn't know anything about that. He's the one who brought it to my attention. And I came home, and I had to go all the way back there to get the tire, to just save the tire. It was like 25-mile drive. But anyway, but the bottom line is that, yes, the nail was inserted in there. I believe it happened at work. I have no proof of that.
You mentioned also a threat to your physical safety, someone saying...
Yes, someone...
Mr. Salapour, I showed you earlier a photograph of a tire wheel from your car. That bolt was inserted by someone as a threat, perhaps as a risk to you.
Yes, I was losing just air on my tire, and I bring it somewhere, and they say, hey, you have a nail in the tire. That's about 1 month old tire. So I brought it back to the shop that they fixed it. And they fixed it. I went to pick it up, and the gentleman told me that, this nail was not picked up through normal driving. I didn't know anything about that. He's the one who brought it to my attention. And I came home, and I had to go all the way back there to get the tire, to just save the tire. It was like 25-mile drive. But anyway, but the bottom line is that, yes, the nail was inserted in there. I believe it happened at work. I have no proof of that.
You mentioned also a threat to your physical safety, someone saying they would
Yes,
have killed you if they
someone
heard.
told me they're going to kill. They would have killed someone like me if you said something, what you said. So,
Mr. Salapour, you've described several significant events since you came forward with your claims. One was the nail in the tire. You described your life was being threatened. Do you feel that this style of retaliation against you has been part of Boeing's efforts to silence and prevent you from sharing your story?
I think the retaliation, somebody even was calling me on my personal phone, time after time. This is my personal phone,
Well, what were they saying?
Well, my boss was calling me there, and for 40 minutes, he kind of berated me and chewed me out. I have a work phone that he can use, but he's calling you on your personal phone, and it reminds me of, people who they stalk people or something like that. They call you on your personal phone to let you know that they know where you live, they know where you are, and they can hurt you. And, after the threats and after this, it's like, it really scares me, believe me. But I am at peace. If something happens to me, I am at peace because I feel like by coming forward, I will be saving a lot of lives, and I'm at peace. Whatever happens, it happens.
Well, we certainly do appreciate you coming forward and certainly the brave and courage it takes for all of you to do this. Yeah. Do you think that there was a culture of retaliation against whistleblowers at Boeing?
Absolutely. And also, there's a culture of when you address the quality issues, and that's all I have done. I haven't made it personal. All I've done is said, hey, we are not measuring the gaps properly. We are not shimming the gaps properly. Then, you get threatened and this and that. All I'm trying to say is that system needs to be changed.
Do you still have your job?
I have my job. The only reason I have my job because I had my attorneys. We filed for the whistleblower system before I spoke up this time.
What's it like when you go back to work?
Well, last time, if you can think of it, I went to a meeting on the 777, and I brought up my concern in that meeting to say that the way we build in that airplane, it does not correlate to what the design of the airplane is. Because of that, we are resulting in a lot of misfares, misfares and a lot of problems. After 300 plus airplanes, we should be able to make that airplane. And my boss sent somebody to the meeting, pulled me out of the meeting, and called me on the phone and says, I throw the person under the bus by asking the question, what are we doing to make our design compatible with our build system to overcome these, mislocated holes and this and that. And then he says, what was my intention? And really berated me. And a week later, he was going to talk about that again. I thought, it's resolved, but a week later he was talking to me about that. Why should you even be prosecuted for something that, all you're doing is saying, hey, the design that we used to have, we went to determinate assembly, it's not working. What can we do? Have you guys thought about anything to bring that so that they are compatible?
So your intention was to build a safe airplane?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Not with force.
I want to try to understand this.
Okay.
The diagram that you all
Yeah.
supplied us, this is a Boeing 787.
Yes.
And you're talking about where these joints come together.
Yes, I'm talking about the one on the most forward between, right there, and one in the aft. That's a 4143. No, the one this way.
This
yeah,
one,
right.
between that and
one.
the nose.
That's a 4143. It's a major joint. And then one on the aft.
So
end.
instead of shimming them, they're basically just using force to bring them together, and you're
Absolutely.
concerned that it hurts the composite.
Well,
And-
it just violates every one of our common practices.
Okay.
Because you don't force stuff together, because when you force stuff together, you increase the stress concentration
Right.
on that. If you think of a paper clip, if you bend it back and forth, after a little while it breaks.
Yeah.
In preparing for this, I did listen to one NBC News report, and this is on the 787, on this gap, and they were reporting that Boeing had apparently stress tested a plane, 165,000 takeoffs and landings, which is 3 times normal life. They inspected 689 of the 1,100 planes that are in service, 0 evidence of fatigue. So how am I supposed to interpret that?
Well, I think Boeing tries to put a lot of misinformation out there. The problem is that 165,000 was on the original airplane. It did not see the excessive forces that we're talking about. If you haven't done the excessive force on those planes, they just thrown that out there to muddy up the water so that information is so clogged up that they are not. They're saying they done 40,000 tests or whatever. Did they put the information out there? Under what circumstances, what airplanes, what was the situation? None of that is shared. I have asked Mrs. Fall, Lisa Fall, that it was on that thing 2 months ago or 3 months ago. When I met her, I said, hey, I'm going to complain. I'm complaining to her about the 787. She said, I'll have somebody get you the information. You probably haven't seen the information. I have not seen any information whatsoever. Okay. As a matter of fact, they're just throwing that stuff. If you want to change the information, like the 165,000, then you need to rerun that test with 165,000 with the new excessive force and show that it's good.